and welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Skyborn. My name is Zedek, and we are playing Update 7 with tubeways, 3D dirt, and all sorts of new features. And I'm using all of that to try to build a skyscraper city. In the last couple of episodes, things have started to get interesting. I built the powerhouse, this giant bad water power plant, as well as this new tree farm, which I've got built completely out of dirt and populated by a single pond. Going into this episode, though, there are two things on my mind. First, I want to increase our food production. We've got this massive tree farm over here, but we still don't really have industrial scale food, and that's one of the limiting factors on growing our population right now. The other thing I want to take care of in this episode is handling the remaining sources of bad water in the map. You see, I've got one other bad water source in here, as well as another regular water source that during bad tides can produce bad water. That's holding me back from developing the entire map. And I think once that's taken care of, it's going to allow me to build the rest of this aqueduct and maybe build some more industrial scale water pumping. So that's the plan. Industrial farming, bad water mitigation. Of those two, I think the bad water mitigation is going to involve tunneling. And that's going to be a lot of background work. I'm going to start with that. We'll get that rolling, some background work going, and then move on to the farming. For our bad water sources that we've got left, we've only got two. We've got this one over here, which is a permanently open bad water source, and these water sources right here. What I am thinking is that I'm going to route those to the bottom of the map and connect them to our existing bad water pipe over here. And you can see the flow over here, you can see that all this water is flowing up into our power plant. That will give us the option of maybe increasing the flow of the power plant or maybe doing some other stuff, but it's going to keep all our bad water in one spot. To do that, I'm thinking I'm going to have a tunnel at the very bottom of the map, connect here to here, and I'm going to combine this with another set of work that I want it to do as well, and that's the aqueduct. If you've seen some of my earlier episodes, one of my plans for this aqueduct was having bad water as well as good water. Now that I have the power plant, I'm kind of changing my mind. I don't think I need it multiple tiers. I think I'm just going to have the aqueduct, when it's fully complete, only being good water. The only problem is I need to solve the bad water that's already in the aqueduct, which is here and here. The one on the left, I don't really care as much about. I've already connected that with the tunnel down here. I could just close the gate up here and our problem is solved. The harder one is this one right here, because I've got bad water sources in the middle of the map that are going to occasionally produce bad water during a bad tide. And I'm using the aqueduct to pump all of this off the edge of the map. What I'm thinking I instead could do is dump that down here, right down below this start of the aqueduct, and just dump it all the way down into a tunnel, right? So if that's the tunnel that is connected to all the other bad water sources, I could just bring it around right to here to connect it, and then run everything else through the power plant. Overall, that's going to mean a long run of tunnels. The good news, however, is that because we're in Update 7, we have access to the new tunnel building. So that's going to make this go a lot easier. As long as we can get beavers down to the bottom of the map, we should be able to make a run through all of this. We just come up with kind of the shape that we're going for, and then we can just need to tap into it somehow. Now, as for this, I need to plan what I'm going to do for this diversion system so I can figure out where the tunnel needs to be. What I was thinking is that if I could get this up to the top like so, we could put a run of levees all the way up here so that the water has to get to the top. We can then make a stacked diversion system like this. And that's going to allow us to make a chamber that we can divert all the bad water down. All right, so this sluice gate will dump stuff into here, then it will be sealed off to let good water out through the top. We'll just have to build this tower a little bit higher. And so if the bad water does run all the way down here, that gives us an indication of where the tunnel is ultimately going to be. That's going to be one block away from this bad water source, so I can use that as a guideline down here and run the tunnel. That's great and all, but now we need to get people down there to actually work on it. And what I have to be really careful of is I want to avoid a situation where they enter the tunnel here and they have to walk down the length of it to go ahead and dynamite something here. So what we probably want to do is have multiple entry points to the tunnel so the beavers can work in tandem. So for example, let's say that we built an entry point here and here. That's going to let the beavers work in 4 places simultaneously. You know, let's start somewhere here. I bet we could build a staircase all the way down to the bottom. Now, if I'm right, I think we're pretty close to the bottom of the map here. That looks about right. I'm just a little bit off with our entryway, but we can go ahead and build some quick tunnels here that we can fill in at the end. With that tunnel entrance set up, we're just going to go over to the other side here, and we're going to build another one. With this tunnel entrance taken care of too, we should be good to go. I know I could probably speed this up with having two boys down there, but it's fine. I don't want to mess around with all the complication. I'm going to make sure that this is kind of the highest priority construction effort though, because it's going to take a while to get everybody doing this, and there's kind of a limit of how many beavers can work in parallel. We're probably going to move on to other things, and they're just going to take care of this in the background. Next up, let's go ahead and get this sealed. I think we got road access pretty close to this. In fact, I think... Can they stand here and build it? I bet they could. We'll just cap that one off. And I think I'm going to try to get somebody up to the top of this to start working on this area. Now, this is awkward tower. Well, we've got this road access here. I'm just going to beeline straight for it and build a stairs all the way to the top. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best one. And with the trees pulled up all the way to the top, we should be able to just complete this. I'm thinking I'm just going to pull out all of these trees, and then I'm going to make an overhang so they can get over to the edge and build these levees. And as they're finishing building that, it looks like we've at least have this bad water discharge in. So that's a good development. It almost, but not quite, is going to free up this side of the map from bad water. We still have one other source of it, which are these water sources right here. Before the end of this, I'm going to come up with another diversion for it as well. And at that point, we're going to have the rest of the map safe from bad water. With those last trees removed, then we can put in our final kind of overhang to help with construction. This will help for now, but eventually we'll have to tear this out. We'll make sure that stuff is decently high priority. With that, I think we're good with background work. We should start building that tower. We've got the dome in, and checking down on our tunnel. Yeah, that is going to continue to take a while. I'll just extend the roads so they can reach everywhere and leave them to it. Well, with that taken care of though, I want to get to the next thing. I want to start building industrial scale food. Because food is one of the ones where we're kind of constrained on population-wise. See, we're about, roughly around 250 beavers. Really, I only have enough food of corn. It's a very boring diet for these beavers. They basically subside only on our corn rations from here. So what I had in mind is I want to make industrial food production that's multiple layers so that I could maybe stack in a bunch of different food choices. Something like what we did with our tree farm here. Now with the tree farm, you'll notice that the height is roughly about 3 blocks before you get to the next layer. And that's really to do with the height of these trees once they're fully grown. Food, I don't think we're going to run into the same restriction, because I don't think food is as high. So let's run some quick tests. I want to see how much vertical height different types of food require. And to do that, I'm going to put down these overhangs. And I believe what's going to happen is the game should prevent me from planting things that would break the height constraint. So for example, I could plant trees here, but it won't let me put down trees here where these blocks are blocking. And with this, we can test all the different food that we want to plant. Anything that can fit under here is good with 1 block of clearance. Anything over here will need 2 blocks of clearance. And I think most food is going to fit in the 1 block clearance. As you can see, I've got kohlrabi is fine, cassava is fine. Soybeans cannot. So soybeans, they have to go into 2 height. Canola is fine. Corn has to go there. And let's take a look. We also have these other things that the forester can plant. Blueberries, they need 1 clearance. Coffee needs 1 clearance. And probably mangroves need 2. Looking at this, we might actually end up with 2 towers. I mean, as I look over here, this required 4 floors. And unless we kind of built something like this and split the products between each, if we did 1 floor per product, we're going to run out of space very quickly. So we might end up with 2 of these agricultural towers. Given this clearance requirements, we'll have to play with a couple of designs to see what we're going to do. I am leaning towards going with a 2 block high floor, mainly because of elevator shafts. So if I'm going to make a tube-way, tube-ways require 2 blocks of clearance like that. Making a really condensed floor like this really doesn't help me a lot if I can't access it very well. The height requirements figured out. Let's figure out where we're going to build this thing. A couple of things I'm considering. One, I want it to be close to this tower. This is going to be our agricultural storage. There's going to be food on top of it. Two, I might need multiple towers, so I need room to grow. Of those constraints, that leans me to either here or maybe over here. I'm leaning towards over here. And the reason is I'm thinking that this area could eventually be food processing. And if I have food processing over here, there's going to be more workers than I need in the area compared to farmers. So if I think of where all the beavers are going to be commuting from, which is down over here, if I'm going to have more workers in the food factories, that's probably okay being here. Long term, since this is a single district playthrough, I might eventually relocate a lot of the homes to be in the center of the map, just so I'm reducing the commute times for all the beavers. That's one thing I kind of wish in the game, that beavers would live close to where they worked, but at the moment you can end up with really odd commutes. Given those constraints, and this is going to be a food factory then, let's go over here. We're going to plan on this being the spot for these towers. Now, I've had a long-term plan here to make this part of the city very grid-like, with these roads having water underneath for the river to keep everything irrigated. If I'm going to continue that pattern, this area right here is going to be a continuation to get access to these new towers. And right in here, that's going to continue to remain river. Then everything else we can start planning on filling in with dirt. That also means that we can start clearing out this run of trees with the expectation that this is going to be one day the continuation of that river. Because we're probably going to need to dynamite some of this stuff out. Especially if I do this, I'm going to indirectly cut all this part of the map off from water. Now, as they're clearing the foundation, the other thing that's on my mind is what I'm going to do about mangroves. Mangroves need water, and one of the downsides of me building this food factory all the way out here is it's going to be tough for me to get water stacked vertically. I don't have a good answer to that right now. I think the only thing I could probably do is plan on mangroves getting their own tower in the future. And as they're building this foundation, I just realized I messed up the build order of this. I really should have had this dynamite laid down first, because I've filled in the river and I've started to cause flooding. That's unfortunate. It's not really any risk at all to anything. Maybe it will slow down a little bit of our food production. Perfect. That should address that flooding. You know, as I look at this, one of the things I should change is putting power underneath this. I can probably do that later, but one of the really nice things I just remember came out in the last patch notes is that power blocks got changed. So power now works very similar to tubeways in this latest update. So you only have two blocks to work with. You've got a square block that automatically works like an Omni gear, where it'll accept connections from all areas, which honestly is amazing because that solves one of the big gripes I've had with taking power vertically. And then you have another one where it's just kind of exposed, which is similar to the distinction between our two-way Omni block and our regular two-way without a frame. All of that is really handy, and that would let me simplify quite a bit of our designs. That also means that for some of these, roadways that I'm doing, I could probably put down power through one of them. I think that's going to work. I'm not going to do it just yet, because I don't need power out here, but with the power plant over here, I could run power through all these roads, plus through the aqueduct. I'll hold off for now, but it's going to be easy to tear off some of this stuff. But really what I want to continue working on is building this tower. I think we just need a little bit more foundation cleared and we should be good to go. Now, it's definitely going to be dirt-based, but I don't want to make it very square like this one. I think there's some interesting things you can do with 3D dirt. I'm just going to want to mess with it, even if it's not going to be the most optimal build. And one of the ones that I've been toying around with lately is combining dirt and overhangs together. One of the things that is a little bit difficult to work with dirt is that you notice that when you build something, you can only go 3 before you can't build anymore. The idea is that this dirt would collapse. You then have to start going up a layer, and then you can continue building like so. However, if I put in some overhangs of the foundation, that lets me put that dirt much, much farther. You can see as I add that second foundation, I've now got much more coverage. And that's right about the height that I'm looking for. I'm looking at 2-block height. And for most of the food, I could even continue to plant under overhang, so I'm not really losing that much space to this build. Based on this, what I'm thinking of doing is actually extending the overhangs in 4 directions. For example, if I put an overhang here and here, it gives me a cross view and I can just add dirt in all of the different directions. It's an interesting shape. So what I'm imagining then, as long as the center of this remains dirt, that's going to be the key to getting this irrigated. So imagine this goes up as high as we need, and there's a pond on the top. This should keep all of these floors underneath irrigated on their own. Then I'm imagining we could just, this would be stackable, right? Like I could just repeat the process down here, and I can make another layer of this. So I've got this clover star building that's going to go all the way up to here, where I can't build any more dirt, and that will be about it. It's definitely going to be a funky looking building, but it's okay. I want to experiment more with this stuff. One quick change I am going to make, though, is increasing the base height by 1 block. And that's because I want to use the first floor for food too, and we already established that 2-block height that we need. We also need to figure out how to modify this design to handle an elevator shaft. And an elevator shaft in the interior of the building would be pretty nice. What I'm imagining is if I had something like this that lined up next to the dirt going up, and then line that up right next to probably a farmhouse. I like that plan. I think the only thing I'm going to have to do here is figure out how to get this two-way connected to things. I could have just run it down through the dirt like that, but I don't want to lose that mining area. So maybe we can just bury it. I could dynamite this down another layer, put the two-way through there, and then put dirt on top of it to get that space back. Now we've got it jutting off down under the farmable area, and now we've got our elevator. Now here's the test. I think that I could continue with the layout that we had previously, just with that side shrunk by 1. And if this works out fine, when I put down the dirt, I'm hoping that this is going to let me still make this symmetrical for the next layer. And it looks like it is. And finally, we need to figure out what we're going to do with that two-way station. I figure it could go, I don't know. I need access for the farm to get access to everything. So I mean, one way I could do it is that, and the exit of the two-way station could then immediately go into an access point for a farmhouse. So one farmhouse would be able to cover all of that. And if I need multiple farmhouses, I could then stack another one right here. Yeah, that gives good coverage. I like it. Like that. Minimal roads, minimal walking. That's what I want to see. Before stamping out the next floors, though, I'm just going to monitor how they build this first floor. I want to see if there's any big construction problems with it that are going to stop the building. Already, I'm seeing a couple problems. One, they're getting stalled out trying to build this. You can see they can't reach this, so they can't build the foundation. I think I just need a temporary two-way here, build it, then I can tear it the 2 ways. The second thing that is confusing to me is that these farmhouses are complaining that they're not connected. That surprises me. Is this two-way station not connected? Oh, I didn't realize that this doesn't connect in the front. I always assumed it did. You can only connect on the back, the sides, and the bottom. That's a little annoying. We're gonna have to find a slightly different arrangement here. I think I'm just gonna swap it around like this. It's the same general idea, just with the farmhouses on the other side of the pillar. That's just a slight concession, but I think that's gonna work better. I'm glad I did that test build of the first floor because it finds out stuff like this. It saves me having to tear out all that stuff after. And the beavers had no trouble building that. I'm liking how this is kind of shaping up. Before I replicate it, though, I'm going to make one minor change to the design. So remember, in the beginning, I was kind of complaining about mangroves, where I didn't know what I was going to do about those. And the other problem I'm kind of thinking of is this first floor looks kind of boring. I think I'm going to combine a solution to both problems. I'm going to grow mangroves at the foundation. So I'm going to convert this into a giant pond. And then maybe if I put down a forester here to plant those mangroves, a forester should then be able to get access to plant berries up here, because they could use the elevator to get there. If I get the entryway to the building here, I could just make this a 1D pond, right? There's water in here. I could put water through all of this. And to prevent it from looking really boring and square, maybe we can just kind of round out the edges a little bit. Now we just need to figure out where we're going to stick this forester. So the forester, he's going to be blocked by these edges. So the forester almost has to be somewhere like here. I don't think I can get around that too much. And if that works out, then to minimize walking distance again, I can just flip the direction that this elevator station is facing. They can now access all the second floor. Great. That means the second floor is going to be berries, first floor is going to be mangroves, everything else can be done by farmhouses. With that planned out then, I think we can start queuing up the additional floors here. I think we've kind of figured out like the tough parts of this build, so from here on out, it's more or less going to be replicating what we've got, just stamping out exactly what we've done again and again. And when putting down these layers, the other thing I have to be really careful of is I don't want to build myself into a corner. So I'm trying to build everything in one direction off the center and the other direction off the center. That way I can comfortably build the elevator shaft. To start with, I'm going to lay down the design for maybe 2 floors. We'll see how long that takes to build, and we can kind of plan from there. And in the time it's taken me to kind of tediously lay all that out, it looks like they're almost done with the TNT. And I see the water starting to leak through. Perfect. Place in whatever beams we needed here to get our forester situated. Build a few stairways down to the ground. And you know, the other thing that I'd like to do is maybe ring this with decorations. You know, if I mixed it up and did, say, pine trees along the perimeter, I don't mind the look of that. Very agricultural. But given where we are with this construction, I'm going to let them continue with that. And let's return to what we started this episode with our bad water diversion system. I want to see how they're doing with the tunnel. Well, looking all the way down at the bottom of the map, it looks like the tunnel is good to go. Most of the tunnel taken care of now. We just need to figure out how to connect everything to it. So we've got 4 connections we need to figure out. The water source here, the bad tide diversion system, this, and then finally connecting it to this outtake over here. First off, let's start with this one. What I'm going to do is temporarily close these bad water domes. They're almost like connected to a chamber because of this sluice gate. So ideally, they should drain all the way out and everything's going to be fine. And then once everything is drained out, I can go ahead and run the last set of dynamite. The only thing that's going to stop it though is this is not going to continue to drain because this is full. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to take our power plant offline just for a little bit. We're just going to completely drain our pipe system of all the bad water. Yeah, that is quickly drying up. I think it's good enough to risk it. I'm going to send beavers in there to finish that last run. Next up, moving over to here. This is unfortunately another complicated area. I have a feeling I'm going to have to disrupt some traffic to fix it. What I'm thinking is that I could add another set of sluice gates below this one, where these levees are. And I could have a vertical pipe go all the way down here. Why it's disruptive though is that I've got to delete this segment of our system, which unfortunately is part of our freeway. Good news is we have another freeway around that the beavers can use in its stead. So let's do the really annoying part first that's going to cause flooding. If these are releasing bad water then, this is going to be where the pipe is. This part's going to go all the way down to the bottom of the map to connect to that other pipe that we already built. And I'm intentionally choosing to build it now during this good season because I need this up and running by the time this bad tide comes. So this is the longest period I've got to do it. And as I build this pipe down, I'm going to actually dynamite around all the perimeter of it. I want to minimize how much dirt is being touched by this stuff. Oh, I just realized I've got a really bad problem here. I need to replace these. Because if I let water fall down this pipe, it's just going to, come out and seep out the side. Oh. Okay, well, we're going to tear this stuff out again and suffer the consequences yet again. That's unfortunate. Well, I'm glad I figured that out now instead of later, because that would have been extremely disruptive. Well, there's our tunnel. With that destroyed, at least, now we can go ahead and just rebuild everything. So there's our tunnel all the way down at the bottom of the map, and our pipe will protect everything. And then we're probably going to have to get up here and seal off the bad water from getting into the good water system. So as long as I put those platforms there and seal off these platforms, that should work. And the final touch of all this construction is just rebuilding our run of aqueduct. This is something I've known I've had to do for a while, and I've just been putting it off because I knew it would be so disruptive and kind of finicky. But better late than never. This is actually pretty funny. So you'll notice this isn't flooding, but that's flooding. It isn't flooding because all of this water is being diverted down into our pipe that we made to redirect bad water off the map. So this is probably going all the way down to here, and it's going into here. So we got really lucky with that. It wasn't my intent, but the pipe did its job. Given that we have this running, I'm going to put a sluice gate here. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'd like to get our power plant turned on again. And so the idea is I can seal this off, turn the power plant on, get it all running and going, but then this pipe can be incomplete. And that way I'm not going to have backflow in here messing things up in the meantime. Well, that takes us to the next step in our tour. We got the connection, we got this connection, now we need this bad water source taken care of. Actually, you know, I'm having second thoughts of this. I don't really need to do anything with this. I have enough bad water on the map already. I may just leave this. If I don't need it, I don't want to deal with having it pollute all this area. I'm just going to forget this existed. Problem solved. This, though, I do have to do something about. I want this running, and I don't want to, you know, just seal it off. This area is just, again, just the terrain in here. You can see I'm having to pull stuff out to make room for stairways. I've got to pull out all these trees so I can build anywhere. Like, for example, if I'm here and I want to build down here, I have to tear these trees out. But to tear out a tree, you have to be at the same level of it, which there's no way to build downward that way. So I almost have to, like, clear a tree up here, then dynamite it away to build a stairwell down. It's just very tricky overall to work with. And the reason I'm trying to do all that is, again, I want to get this dynamite here laid down. Because as soon as I can get this dynamite down, that should give us access to the tunnel. Then we can complete this area and then build this up all the way to complete our tunnel. In addition to dynamiting this down, I want to do what I did in the center of the map, which is surround it by levees. Because levees in this case, I want to minimize the amount of dirt that it's touching. So I'm not really contaminating all the nearby countryside. So that's going to involve probably dynamiting this area out as well. That looks deep enough. I'm just going to go around the edges and seal everything else up with levees. And we're going to do that until we're nice and flush all the way up with the bad water intake. Now, after they finish this, we do have another problem here that this is going to cause flooding. Because by the act of me filling this up, what I'm doing is I'm not giving the water anywhere else to go, like other than it going down into this pit. So it's going to be almost like a volcano with all the water overflowing. And the answer to that is going to be to rise this up one more layer, which we will get to. What I want to do in the meantime, though, is you'll notice that this is running into our pipe. So we have another case where our pipe is redirecting water off the edge of the map. I do want to get our power plant back running, though. So what I'm going to do, given that this is now a one-way valve, we're going to go ahead and close the water that's running off the edge of the map, and we're going to turn things back online again. So we should be safe to turn on these bad water gauges. They're going to flood through here very quickly, but this should not come backwards. The other thing I should probably do is start to disconnect our subway stations that I built in here. I don't need any more road access down into this system, especially because, as you can see here, apparently that's causing flooding. The reason I'm trying to prioritize getting the power plant back online is with it down, a lot of our industry is shut down. So for example, our dirt excavators are more or less offline. But we still have our dirt construction going on, so I do want a constant supply of that dirt coming in. And speaking of which, I do want to get back to that evergreen kind of Christmas tree building, so let's wrap up this construction as quickly as we can. We got very lucky here, and a drought just hit as we were finishing up the top of this bad water diversion system. So the good news is we can take advantage of this to finish sealing off this construction. Now, you'll notice I put down some TNT. That's because I want to get down around the edges here to remove some of this dirt that's adjacent. Oops. Ooh, that was very risky. I didn't realize anybody was coming up here. You got very, very lucky. We'll rescue him in a moment, but the reason I'm doing this is I want to minimize the amount of dirt that bad water is going to touch next to this stuff. And so I'm going to dig down around the edges of this and replace it with levees. A couple well-placed overhangs should let us also speed up this construction, because we got to get this done in just 6 days. With a day and a half to go before the drought ends, we've got to start planning the next round. And what I mean by that is we need to direct the water in the way that we want. So most of this is built, but it's still, again, just going to overflow like a volcano. At the very least, I want to direct the water in this direction. So what I'm planning on doing is we can rush build those, then build another overhang here, and then we're going to build another set of sluice gates right here. And that's going to be letting good water through. We're really cutting this close. I don't think we're going to finish it in the day that we've got left. Luckily, we do have a lot of beavers coming in to help with the construction, so I don't know, maybe we'll get lucky. You can see the final pieces starting to come together in this construction now. Before I forget, we'll seal all of this off with impermeable floors. And there was my concern. So it is going in the right direction, but we've got a little bit of flooding right over here. And to solve that, all I really need is probably like something here and here. The hardest part is getting the beavers up there to build it. All right, I think that is good enough for now. We still do have one little bit of bad water that we need to figure out, probably in a future episode, and that's this water source over here. But for now, I think I've achieved the main objective, which is freeing up this main aqueduct to being dedicated just to good water. Because with this bad water diversion system, this is not going to have to be flooded with bad water all the time. It also means I can eventually start turning off this power plant and have this power stop flooding bad water there. It's baby steps. We're kind of setting ourselves up for a future episode. That said, I do want to get back to our agricultural farm. How are we doing? Well, pretty good. We've got all these floors. We're not planting anything, but they did build it. So given that this turned out as I was hoping, I'm just going to finish putting in the last couple of floors. I've got a good feel of what I need to do layout-wise for this, so it's just going to be a matter of stamping it out again and again. I think the trickiest part again is just getting the build order right, so I don't build myself into a corner. Well, at the very least, between mangroves at the bottom, that's going to give us 5 floors for 5 separate crops. What I might do, however, is I kind of do like the look of this. I might just start making multiple of these and interleave them together. For now, though, let's go ahead and get the first one fully built. I want to get this building irrigated and start getting crops in. And there is the completed form of this tower. I think I'm ready to see this thing green. Now, I've got everything prepped except for the fluid dump. I don't have it populated yet, so let's get somebody over here. And let's see this thing made green. That is a good sign. Everything nice and green. Oh, that worked out well. And you can see there was not really any doubt that it would, considering that this pond over here kept this giant tree structure all populated. This thing had no challenge. With that taken care of, I think it's time for us to go ahead and put down our farmhouses on each floor. If I remember, we kind of had planned for maybe 2 of these for each. And, oh, actually, the one thing I forgot is this floor probably doesn't need farmers, because this one's going to have double duty with this forester down here. So the bottom one doesn't get any farms. Farmhouse is situated, it's now time to fill this thing with food. They have so much food on Iron Teeth, it's hard to keep track of it all. So let's just go floor by floor, and we're going to assign different food or different agricultural goods. So we know that the very bottom level is going to be mangroves. This should be a nice supply for everybody. The only thing I'm probably going to change is I'm going to add some gatherers. That should give nice coverage. Second floor. this is going to be a mix. So this one's still covered by the forester. And when we've got that opportunity, I'm going to cover 2 other plants in here. I'm going to mix this half coffee bush and half berries. Next floor up, what do we got for here? Cassava is always one that we could use more of. So this will be all cassava. Up another 2 floors. This one can be all soybeans. This one can be all canola. And our final floor, I don't know, this one can also be more corn. That will maybe let us start to retire our existing corn factory. That should keep them busy, and at least it does look like we've got farmers in here, so they should start planting that in the morning. Now with this tower, at this point, I can't build dirt any higher, which I would love. I'd like to get this all the way up to the top of the map, which I'm not really a fan of that limitation that they have. I think it's more of a callback to the way dirt used to be until they added to 3D dirt. So I'm really hoping that they lift that dirt restriction in the game. But if I'm going to build this tower any higher than this, I'm going to need to resort to levees and overhangs. Something that I will like to do at some point is start adding hydroponic gardens for mushrooms and algae. I'm not going to do it yet though. And the reason is these require water, and my water capacity isn't really great right now. We have enough pumps just to deal with our population. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, well, look at this. Here, let's pause this for a second. I didn't fully fix this bad water diversion system. So we rebuilt this when I was doing all the pipes earlier, but I forgot to seal the thing off. So the water here couldn't fall into the pipe quickly enough, was creating a backlog and overflowing up here. Well, that's too bad. We got minor contamination in our holding tank. For this to be fully solved, at some point, I'm going to have to put a lid on this. That way it has nowhere else to go when the bad water's in there. But what I was getting at with all this is my pumping situation isn't really great right now. Like, I'm getting enough water pumped for the beavers to drink at this population, but not much more. So if I were to put in like a giant hydroponics bay up here, I'm going to probably starve out my beavers. With our food in though, we're going to need some place to start storing it. And last episode, I made this storage facility, which was all built for logs from our log factory. I left some of the upper floors open with this in mind. All the food that we're going to produce is ultimately going to go into large warehouses. And so my idea was that I was going to continue the floors of this building and just dedicate them to these things. I designed this building with that in mind. Hopefully this is going to be pretty cookie cutter, where I can just outline the next shape that I want and just build, a ridiculous number of large storage facilities. There, that's going to buy us some time to fill all this stuff in. And of course, this one doesn't have any of the limitations that we're running into with dirt. So this one, really, we could go up quite high when we need to. Overall, I think we made a lot of progress here. We did manage to cap off this bad water. We redid a new whole section of pipe, and we've got our agricultural farming going. There's only one thing I'm not happy with, and that's I wish that I actually had more food coming in here. And you know what's better than one food tower? I think 2 food towers. So I think to wrap this up, we're going to double our food storage by building another one of these right adjacent to it. And this is nothing new. We're just recreating the exact same thing I've done before and giving the beavers some time to build, which doubles our food production. With a little bit of time, we've got our completed second tower. And I'm feeling a lot better about all the food in here. This is going to go a lot farther. In fact, I think that would allow us to start cleaning up some of our other food supplies now. Taking a brief peek inside, I just replicated the exact other tower, except I chose to build it just a little bit closer so that they would overlap a little bit and I can make kind of a solid structure in the middle here. I've gone through and I've just replicated some additional food. The only ones that is new here are eggplants that I didn't have before, and I also put in a little bit of kohlrabi. So this tower has basically every food I can get in here other than the manufactured hydroponic farm stuff. As this completes though, you can see that we've got a problem, and that's a lack of workers. I've been really holding off growing the population until we have a lot of food and a lot of water. And I think we're right on the cusp of being able to expand now. Like this solves our food problem, but I think next episode, I'm really going to start ramping up our water production and then just ramping up this population a lot. But with that, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So this city is definitely growing, but we've still got a ways to go. As always, I hope you enjoy these videos, and I hope to catch you next time.